Hi folks, and welcome back to Broadside Gaming with me, Zug. So, as I said in the original video for this, testing was needed, and that is what we'll be doing tonight. Lots and lots of testing. So, we have an updated Relic blade build for the Zealot. So, let's just jump straight in, and I'll show you what's changed and how we're using it. So, first off, let's look at the Relic blade. So, modifiers haven't changed. Mobility is still our dump stat. We have changed the perks around a bit. We're now going for Carapace and Flak. This is going to basically give you the ability to cleave through mixed hordes and kind of ignore bulwarks and not bulwarks, sorry, crushers and maulers. Bulwarks are still a pain, but you know they always are. So for the blessings, we're still using cranial grounding, reduces heat build-up by 6% and increases weak spot damage by 4%. For 3 seconds on chained weak spot hit, stacks up to 5 times. So basically, with the sword, you want to be trying to aim at head height at all times to decapitate your foes. And next up, we're using our Rampage. Hitting at least 3 enemies with an attack increases your damage by 36% for 3 seconds. Pretty simple to understand. Hitting 3 enemies, do more damage. Very nice combination, this. So, as you can see, you want to charge your sword up and just start cleaving at the face. Your light attacks are very, very good, so don't feel like you only have to heavy attack. Heavy attacks are very good, though, for headshots. But do remember, with the power sword, you do have to manage your heat, otherwise you're going to be locked out of going into your super awesome mode. So, just every now and again, try and turn it back off again and then flick it back on when it's down low enough. You can take out crushers pretty easily with this. It's not working as should be in the meat grinder because we haven't got all the other buffs rolling. But it's pretty damn effective. If you want to see gameplay of this, please do go look back at tonight's live stream. There's a few hours of gameplay of all of the testing if you want to see every step of the way through. That is the live stream that happened on the 3rd of the 12th. Just so you guys know. And that's the Relic blade. Next up, we can use the Spearhead Boltgun. Pretty much the same as we did last time. The dump stat is mobility. Everything else is up at 80. The perks, we're going for damage to flak and unyielding. This is going to be really good for basically gunning down rager packs or mag dumping into bosses. If you can't get past the area of denial with, say, a Beast of Nurgle or a Plague Ogre that's stomping around, or, you know, a spawn, you can back off and just mag dump into their faces, and you'll do an awful lot of damage. At the moment, I am using Shattering Impact and Puncture. Puncture because it goes really well with the build, Bleed giving us more crit, but I will give you a different way of building it if that isn't your style. So let's just jump over to the Spearhead Boltgun. So if you don't want to use Shattering Impact and Puncture, you can go for Fire Frenzy and Pinning Fire. This is just going to give you massive stacking damage against whatever you're shooting, whereas this is going to put Brittleness, which basically is rending, onto the target, which helps the team, and Puncture, which sets you up for more melee damage. But if you don't want that kind of setup, Fire Frenzy and Pinning Fire are your go-to. Next up, we've got the Curios. I'm running full toughness at the moment. Seems to be working quite well. And each Curio is toughness with an extra 5% toughness, 12% stamina regen, and 20% damage resistance gunners. The reason we're using stamina regen is because this build is very dodge-centric. So we're using a hell of a lot of stamina. And please do remember as well, sliding does kind of count as dodging. So, and as we dodge more, we do more damage, we take less damage, regenerate toughness, it's all good. So this is a very movement-based build. All right, let's take a look at the talents. So as you can see here, we're not going through the middle at the moment. We're going to pick up Disdain, which gives us plus 5% damage on your next melee attack. For each enemy hit, stacks 5 times. As you can see, this does go hand in hand with the sword being a big, wide swinging weapon, doing lots of damage to lots of targets. So this is going to help buff that. Then we're going for Backstabber, 20% damage on melee backstab hits, into Scourge, Melee critical hits apply bleed, causing damage over time. Melee hits on bleeding enemies grant 10% crit chance for 3 seconds, stacks 3 times. Again, this is why we are using puncture on the Boltgun, but as I said, you don't have to. Then into toughness boost, then we're grabbing second wind, replenish 15% toughness on a successful dodge, and then enduring faith, plus 50% toughness damage reduction on critical hit for 4 seconds. So we're basically stacking dodge and crit. And then we're picking up Blades of Faith. Throw a consecrated knife to deal high damage to a single enemy. Very effective against most enemies, less effective against Carapace. Basically, it does nothing against Carapace. Quick throw. Killing elite and special enemies in melee replenishes 1 knife. Ammo boxes replenish knives. So the thing about these, if you've not used them before, at distance you want to aim slightly above the head where you're throwing it. And that'll give you a nice headshot. So just above them. It's more effective on some things than others. But for sniping specials, they are very, very useful. But like I said, they're not going to do much against Carapace. You might as well be flicking frozen peas at him. But against everything else, they're pretty damn useful. Especially if you don't want to switch to Boltgun, which does take a moment to get out. So if you're fighting, you see a netter bearing down on you, you're not quite arranged to hit it, but you don't have enough time to get the gun out. You can just spam your blades. So, pretty good way of getting rid of them without having to make yourself a bit useless in melee combat for the moment. Right. Next up, we've got toughness damage reduction going into Dance of Death. Minus 75% spread and 50% recoil for 3 seconds on successful dodge. Into Good Balance, the successful dodge grants 25% damage reduction for 2.5 seconds. We don't want Dance of Death so much, but we do want Good Balance. Then we're going over here into Toughness, and then we're going to be grabbing a plus 5% melee damage into Movement Speed. Then we're grabbing Duelist, plus 50% weak spot and critical hit damage for 3 seconds on successful dodge. As you can see, dodge is being stacked up massively through this build. Then into Until Death, fatal damage instead grants you invulnerability for 5 seconds, can only occur every 2 minutes. And then into Holy Revenant. When Until Death ends, you gain health based on the damage you dealt during Until Death. To a maximum of 25% max health, melee damage dealt heals 3 times that amount. And then into Benediction, and then we're picking up Toughness Boost into Fury of the Faithful. Dash forwards, replenishing 50% toughness and gaining 20% attack speed for 10 seconds. Your next melee hit gains 25% damage and is a guaranteed critical hit. Basic cooldown is 30 seconds. Then we're picking up Redoubled Zeal, which gives us 2 charges of this. And this just goes so well with the sword. Run in. And lunge. It's ridiculously good. Right, and after that, we're going to be grabbing Suppression Dealt. Don't care about this, but we do want to get into the tree below it. Then we're going to be grabbing Toughness Damage Reduction, and then picking up Faithful Frenzy for plus 10% melee attack speed. Melee attack speed works really well with the sword. You will feel the difference between not using this and using it. You can really feel it. Then into Melee Damage Boost, into Sustained Assault, plus 4% melee damage for 5 seconds on hitting an enemy with a melee attack, stacks 5 times. This is just giving us a stacking damage buff at all times, and we're using that in combination with Disdain. Next up, we've got Punishment. Melee attacks that hit at least 3 enemies grant 5% impact strength for 5 seconds, stacks 5 times. At match stacks, gain uninterruptible. It's kind of alright. Don't really care though. Mainly to get into this tree. Movement speed into Invocation of Death, plus 200% ability cooldown regeneration for 4 seconds on melee critical hit. Then into Blazing Piety, plus 15% critical hit chance for 8 seconds when in Fury. Fury is triggered when 25 enemies have died within 25 meters. Which on higher difficulties like Damnation, Uruk Damnation, Havoc is going to be basically all the time. And then into Stalwart, triggering Fury replenishes 50% toughness. In addition, while Fury is active, you have 25% toughness damage reduction. This is just going to be a very nice way of not being pulled to pieces in hectic horde situations, as we have quite a lot of toughness damage reduction throughout the build, and this is just going to be a nice little cherry on the top for us. Now, if you want to get rid of this, you can, and I would highly suggest, if you are going to get rid of it, you put the point into Thy Wrath Be Swift. Enemy melee attacks cannot stun you, and on taking damage gain 15% movement speed for 2 seconds. This does actually allow you to use the console machines where you're, doing the little game. It does allow you to not get knocked off of those occasionally. And also it is quite a good ability in itself, but it also does that. It's not 100% of the time, but it is quite frequent. But for the moment, I am running with Stalwart. But that is an option if you want to. Now, I do still have the other version of the build. This just seems to work quite a bit better. The attack speed we got for Innoxiable Judgment is very, very good. But the crit just makes the build work so much better. So, we have had to take out my favourite bit of the tree, which is this. I do prefer to go through this side, picking up Immolation Grenade, but we just don't have the points spread for that at the moment. So, this works very, very well. I just like the utility of this part. But this does turn you into an absolute threshing machine with the sword. It does take a little while to get used to it and having to swing between light, heavy, block push, and that sort of thing. But, as with all weapons, time will increase your skill. But I do like being able to do that, because it's funny. And with all of your buffs rolling, you can make a complete mockery of crushers. Just make sure to dodge their overhead attacks, because it will smear you across the field. But there you go, folks. An updated version of the Relic build. I do hope you enjoy it, and if you do, please do like, subscribe, ring that bell for notifications. It really does help us out. And I shall see you all for the next one. So until then, take it easy. I'll see you later.